Morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the New York City Transit and Bus Committee meeting. Let's get started with our public safety announcements, please.
Your safety is of foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen to the following instructions. In the event of an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and 911 should be called. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell D down the hallway past the elevators. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. Thank you and have a safe day.
Thank you. We'll now move to our public speakers.
Good morning. We have 15 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we will limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you when you have 30 seconds left to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be Yuki Endo, followed by Charlton D'Souza. The next speaker will be Charlton D'Souza, followed by Raymond Martinez.
Yeah, ready. Yeah.
Go ahead, Yuki.
Nanin is you can know I am upset with Bronx local bus network redesign with the Q50 bus not going to cross city during the off-peak hour and BX29 from the city island not going into Club City also. I also stand with a senior citizen, senior and 88 people at not having community to restore the BX 32 bus stop at the North Avenue is 146. And also the other people are also angry across 121st Street with the alienation of the N100 and the BX15 bus. Yeah. And then also in the September 2022, they're going to be big on the festival at the London's Island. And then last year, N35 bus was very close loaded. So NJ needs to apply X80 bus this September for the big on the food festival. And thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Charlton D'Souza, followed by Raymond Martinez.
Good morning, everyone. I have some concerns to raise about what's going on regarding the Bronx Bus Redesign. We've gotten complaints about Co-op City. I was also at a bus stop yesterday on the BX32, and y'all need to reinstate that bus stop that was covered by Greg Marker and Pix 11. We're very concerned about it. I was out there yesterday, and I didn't like what I saw. Y'all basically moved the bus stop, which was a nice bus shelter, and y'all make people go to an isolated, desolate area to pick up the bus, which actually is across the street from a hospital. So that needs to be looked into. As far as communication, communication needs to be improved. A lot of people are tweeting and texting overnight that New York City Transit, but we're not getting like a response back. And there's been a lot of train delays of late and bus cancellations. So what I want to know is how many bus drivers are still on the job from the newly hired bus operators that came about 4 months ago. And then as far as train operators, I'm getting reports a lot of train operators are leaving. Even the retirees that were brought in to fill slots have also left. So that leaves me to wonder what's going on at the MTA. Are we able to make service? Why are people waiting 45 minutes for subway trains on weekends in some cases, or waiting for like bus cancellations like the Q2, which trips are being canceled left and right and people are being left stranded? So we need answers. Same thing with the express buses, a lot of cancellations. People are paying a lot of money to ride these buses and we're not getting answers from New York City Transit. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Raymond Martinez, followed by Vittorio Bugatti.
Good morning, everybody, and I am speaking on behalf of my neighborhood of Co-op City. So on June 26th, they took out the BX29 and the off-peak Q50, and basically they left us with the BX23, and the proposed frequency improvements were supposed to be a good thing. I had good anticipations for it, but since day one of the redesign, the BX23 has had canceled trips leading up to waiting times of 40 minutes to an hour. And that is just unacceptable. And I usually commute on middays from the Co-op City all the way down to Brooklyn. And whenever I need the BX23, it just simply will not show up half the time. And I have to take a longer bus ride on the BX28 to go to Gun Hill Road, or pay an extra $6.75 to take the BXM7 express bus, which is not always the cheapest option for me. So I'm just requesting that they monitor the BX23 and make sure those scheduled trips actually run, because that is our only bus going to Pelham Bay if it is not a rush hour. So please, please, please monitor the BX23 and make sure those trips actually run. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Vittorio Bugatti, followed by Michael Ortiz.
Good morning. I'm Vittorio Bugatti, leader and founder of the Express Bus Advocacy Group. I'm here to discuss our safety concerns pertaining to the floor-to-ceiling shields being installed on the new express buses. A number of commuters in my advocacy group have raised grave concerns about being trapped in the event of an emergency should the bus operator lose consciousness while at the wheel, which happened in 2013. It was the heart of rush hour on a packed BXM18 bus to Riverdale. The bus operator had a medical episode and passed out. 25 people injured. The accident ended right in front of a school on Madison Avenue in East 81st Street on the Upper East Side. Luckily, dismissal had occurred earlier, and two quick-thinking passengers were able to run to the front of that bus and steer it to safety. But we could have been talking about fatalities and many more injuries. I was on the bus behind the one involved in the accident, so I got to see many of the shaken-up passengers that were not injured that were transferred to our bus. I will never forget that day, as I was supposed to be on that bus heading home to Riverdale, but luckily was stuck in my office finishing a project. We, your customers, do not want to be sitting ducks on these express buses in the event of an emergency. The MTA will argue that these doors open easily, and our argument is that every second counts. I have seen these floor-to-ceiling shields on buses when I lived in Italy. I have never seen them block any entrance or exit. There are shields on the local buses here that also don't block any entrance or exit. So why should they on the express buses? We have no issues with bus operators being protected, but we do have a problem with us not having to say about our safety. Some customers have noted that they have claustrophobia and cannot be in such. We, your customers, have never been consulted about about our concerns in terms of getting off these buses in an emergency. You must reconsider the designs of these shields as they compromise passenger safety. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Michael Ortiz, followed by Bradley Brashears.
Hello? All right. So one of the things I want to bring up today in this meeting is safety in our subways. A lot of homeless people have been roaming around the subway system. Every end of the line subway system has homeless sleeping. and somehow there's no police presence in sight. And I would like to have a solution for this. And one of the things is to have social workers in every end of the line subway system. I also want to say great work to the people who are operating our trains and buses. Now, one of the things is we need more police presence in our subway system, and we need private security guards to check to see if there's weapons being used, because we cannot have more of those held. Now, another thing I want to be discussing about is our bus system in Staten Island. I want to know why there's no subway service in Staten Island. There is nothing there. I would consider having an R train extension from 95th Street to the island. This will accommodate people now because now we are in a global crisis right now. And all SIR trains have to use a truck to get to the Coney Island yard, which is absolutely unacceptable. And those trucks burn tons of fossil fuels. And I would consider an extension with the interlining as well. And another thing is that because Staten Island is mostly a transit desert, and students who go to the College of Staten Island have the 93 that run from Bay Ridge to the college itself. That ends at 9:30, but there's people that are staying there till 10 because of classes. And I want to know why is there no bus after 9:30? Why can't they extend service till like 10:30 or 11 for Brooklyn riders? Please explain that to me, because we need that service. And I'm hoping to conclude my remarks right now. Thank you for all the work you do, and I hope to speak again later. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Bradley Brashears, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Good morning. I'm Bradley Brashears, Associate Director at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. First, we appreciate the revamped Transit Committee book with a new look and focus on service and other metrics that directly impact riders. Making MTA data more accessible and digestible is an important part of better equipping riders, advocates, and all stakeholders with the tools we need to fight for a better transit system alongside you. We look forward to seeing more creative implementation of the MTA open data law in the coming months. As 2022 progresses, it's clear that subway ridership is plateauing. But while weekday ridership struggles to climb past 60% of pre-pandemic levels, weekend ridership continues to be encouraging. The weekend of July 16-17th, subways saw nearly 80% of pre-pandemic ridership, a pattern that continues to unfold around the transit system. Even as many New Yorkers commute to work less, they still take transit for elective trips, seeing friends and family, running errands, or for other activities like the subway series, which, by the way, would be even more convenient with an accessible Met's Willets Point station. We're confident that weekend ridership would only continue to increase with better off-peak service. This doesn't mean taking away rush hour service on weekdays when New Yorkers still depend on subways and buses, but instead reducing the often 15-minute headways riders experience on weekends. Making sure that riders who choose to take transit on weekends and nights have a fast and efficient trip will be key to keeping them on board in the coming weeks and months. We know this will take long-term recurring sources of operating funding, and we're committed to fighting for the state and federal action needed to make it a reality, without service cuts or fare hikes. Now more than ever, transit is an essential service that should be funded as such, especially as larger percentages of commuters depend on transit to get them to jobs supporting our other essential services. These new ridership patterns may be here to stay, and it's important that the MTA and our city and state governments adapt to our new reality. Millions of riders still need transit to get them where they need to go, and they need funding for the MTA to deliver reliable service. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Lisa Daglian, followed by Elizabeth Abraham.
Hi, good morning. I'm Lisa Daglian, Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. Thank you for launching the new ridership survey with its focus on customer satisfaction and getting riders back on board. Yes, I took it, and I urge everyone else to do the same. Maybe we'll have lunch. The survey showed that personal safety and security, homeless people, and people behaving erratically are top of mind for subway customers. Addressing these issues is key. Improving service by reducing wait times on weekdays for bus riders and weekends for subway riders is also key. That'll take money and crews, but more on that later in finance. I am one of the 62% of subway riders who is satisfied or very satisfied with MTA staff helpfulness, and would like to give a shout out to the booth agent at my home station, Vernon Jackson, who's always helpful and pleasant, and who this morning called in a person behaving erratically on the platform that I reported to him. Booth agents and other visible MTA staff, station ambassadors if you will, do make a difference. We encourage more. Also making a difference is the work that's happening with the homeless population. The presentation that Pat Warren gave today at the Safety Committee showed the results of the ongoing collaborative efforts throughout the system, with 5,000 service referrals and 600 who remain in shelter. There's still a long way to go to resolve the root causes of homelessness, obviously, but many are well outside the MTA's responsibility. But you are doing a lot, and as Pat said, safety and security go together. Since it's top of mind for riders, I'll again urge you to make the Safety Committee a more permanent fixture, and also recommend that you consider sharing the homeless outreach presentation at the next transit and joint committee meetings, since riders of the entire system are directly affected by the work that's underway, and the efforts being undertaken should be more prominently recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Elizabeth Abraham, followed by Jean Ryan.
Everyone, and I get very excited coming here, and I just love Accessoride. Love you guys. But I want to present two issues. One of the issues is why not? Why can't we do this? And the idea is that we have a multicultural community. In a few years, it's going to be immense. And for that reason, I feel that they should present something as a multicultural where there could be some training of the workers where they could have something in, for example, as I mentioned before, that I could have something in English and Spanish. The driver's in his car, and he's want to communicate to someone, and he doesn't really speak much English, but on the Spanish it says, oh, in English you could go up, down, go around. In Spanish, para arriba, para abajo, alrededor. And that we comprehend the importance of educating the people, and people would say, hey, we appreciate that, thank you. It's a little sort of education because they're speaking regarding this area. And I think that funds should be made for that, and we have to think of the future also. And one of the things I also want to mention is we should have as I said, speak in a training in terms of that for the future. But another issue too is that we need to have some enforcement that, for example, the brochures, if I'm saying this right, they're not, we're announcing, when I take a transportation, for example, get in a car and they tell us, I always have to ask, okay, make sure, what kind of car? Is it a color? And they tell me that it's a black. There's a lot of black cars. So for that reason, I feel that the broker should have some type of enforcement of use the logo, because if it's a black car, at least he has a logo right there and it's number 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5. Why are they not proud of doing that? Are they embarrassed? And in other words, why not? Why we can present an issue of the future with a multicultural community, and why not that these people that are using in their vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jean Ryan, who will be followed by Alita Dupree.
Hello. I'm Jean Ryan, President of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York. Regarding the Hunter College elevator, we and 12 other disability rights organizations want it where you are putting it on the northeast side of the intersection. You are the experts. Our 13 groups urge you not to delay further. I had to quit my wonderful job teaching at Hunter College in 1998 because I could no longer travel by subway to and from my job. Accessoride had become too arduous with horrible scheduling and long trips that took too many hours every day. Yes, we want that Hunter College elevator on the northeast corner. What are Accessoride's plans for evacuating many people with disabilities in an emergency like what happened during Hurricane Sandy? There will be another emergency. Previously, the big vans or buses with lifts had 3 wheelchair spaces to evacuate people. But with most riders now using broker cars and Accessoride using the broker cars, how will that work? 4-hire vehicles and taxi drivers are independent operators and may not want to go where we are since they already don't want to pick us up in the outer boroughs. What about if an emergency happens on a holiday or at night? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Alita Dupree, followed by Christopher Greif.
Thank you, Chair Haida Mahalsis. Hope I got that right. Alita Dupree for the record, she and her. Thank you. Good to be back. I'm going to talk about some different things today. As I've said before, I think our subway and bus system should work on renewable energy, and I think we should have a power content label. I don't have any background today, because I want to do some show and tell. This is what a power content label looks like. It's from BART. I know, don't strain your eyes. It's that you find on the website. But I'm seeing the benefits of reducing emissions that BART is doing. You can see how the bars are just disappearing. And I think that we need to talk about, actually, I think some of the power authority contracts are going to expire, which means that we can find providers that will be able to generate and transmit renewable energy to run our system. So thank you, and enough about that. And it's important to continue the work on Omni. I think we need to have an Omni report, because I think the pilot is going to expire at the end of this month with the fare capping, and I hope to use it soon. I still haven't made it to New York. I guess I'm enjoying the 60-degree weather in California. But fare capping is helpful. It's frustrating on systems where I don't have fare capping. And the ADA work must continue. I don't want to see elevators and the like delayed, because I want to be able to use the system freely. Because even though I can climb stairs, there are many who can't. And sometimes I'm just having a bad day. I'm a little tired. I need some help. So the escalators and elevators are very, very important. So it's a pleasure to be with you, and I hope to be back on the system soon. It's not just a system to get around on, but a system that I enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christopher Greif, followed by Brenda Price.
And good morning, everyone. Christopher D. Greif. Thank you, Caitlin. Just want to make this very clear to everyone. First, I want to wish everyone a happy ADA 32, which is tomorrow. So everyone, please enjoy the ADA 32. One thing that I'm going to comment, because as an advocate for people with disabilities as well as seniors, we need to make very clear when we do the redesign, we need to remind that there are NYCHT houses, hospitals, like with the BX32 bus. The bus stop was discontinued, but you still need a bus stop to make sure that seniors and people with disabilities can get on. They shouldn't be walking 4 to 8 blocks. That is not safe for them, especially a lot of them who uses walkers, who have not all disabilities are shown. So please, let's make that very clear. We need to bring this bus stop back. This is at 143rd Street and Morris Avenue. So please, let's try to do something for that senior disability, which NYCHT does have a lot of low income, plus a hospital right up the block as well. The main thing is also to make sure, as we do celebrate, we need to make clear that we all support getting more funding for elevators, ramps, and more accessibility buses. The more new vehicles we get, the more we can keep advocating. So our elected officials who are listening, please make sure you put that funding in. We need the funding to make sure we have beautiful new stations, beautiful elevators, especially ADA accessible. Once again, happy ADA 32 to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brenda Price, followed by Andy Pollock. Ms. Price, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. And good morning. My name is Reverend Brenda Price. I am with the Convent Avenue Baptist Church in Manhattan, and I represent the church and my community. We are asking the MTA to reinstate the BX19 bus in Manhattan at 145th Street and Convent Avenue. These bus stops on 145th Street, eastbound and westbound, are placed between two very long and very steep hills. And the removal of these bus stops has strained or stranded the community from essential services such as access to and from 6 different subway lines, the 1, the 3, the A, B, C, and D. It also stranded our senior citizens from the senior citizen center that was at that bus stop. They are forced to either go down a very steep hill or come up a very steep hill. And so that bus stop is essential to getting seniors to the center for meals, social support, as well as in times like this, the cooling center. Additionally, there are 3 different churches in the area with attendance of over 1,500 people, and they are being denied access to their places of worship from the removal of this bus. Please return the BX19 to 145th Street and Convent Avenue in Manhattan. This proposes a danger in the winter because people will have to travel down or up very steep hills in inclement weather. These buses are important. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Andy Pollock, followed by Jason Anthony.
Thank you, Kate. Good morning, everyone. Andy Pollock from Passengers United. So let's talk about the Queens Bus Redesign. As I was trying to elaborate back in June, the Q30 is at risk of being eliminated. So what does this mean? Well, this is going to mean that we've no direct bus from the Little Neck Shopping Plaza or Queensboro Community College to the Jamaica Long Island Railroad Station at Sutphin Boulevard, Archer Avenue, and Fresh Meadows will also be losing a bus along Utopia Parkway. Also, it has been brought to my attention that the Q8 bus route from Jamaica to Erskine Street in Brooklyn is also being at risk of being eliminated to the Gateway Shopping Plaza, and the Q41, that's also at risk of being eliminated. It's a bus route that goes from Jamaica to Howard Beach. So I don't understand, why are these routes being eliminated? It really doesn't make any sense. And my last point I want to bring up for this month, I took the subway last week on Tuesday from Forest Hills, and both at Forest Hills and Kew Gardens. I understand that there's a new contagious COVID variant going around, but we need to bring back the hand soap in the subway stations because, you know, a lot of people aren't washing their hands. And the main reason why a lot of people are getting infected is because they don't wash their hands. So please make hand sanitizer more accessible at subway stations going forward, and especially because we're expecting another COVID surge during the winter months. So with that, Richard, with that, Heda, with that, everyone, thank you all very much, and I expect to speak again in the fall. Take care.
Thank you. Our final speaker will be Jason Anthony.
Good morning, everyone, from Grand Central 42nd Street on the Lexington Avenue line. I've been seeing a lot of people, one, not showing their faces, two, a lot of people not mentioning one thing. Our subway operators and conductors should be recognized, especially those who were in action during the 36th Street incident on the 4th Avenue line. It is so sad seeing those people that brag so much about being advocates, but not talk about this. So, why I'm here today at Grand Central? Because of that. And also, I'm here right now on the Lexington Avenue line, southbound platform, and it's so sad that most people here are not, I repeat, not wearing masks. And every time I go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning at Whitehall Street, South Ferry, I'm seeing BRC outreach workers there. It's a good advancement, but I want to see them in Brooklyn, in my home station, Atlantic Avenue, Barclays Center. And I've been seeing lately TikTok videos about subway surfers. I want subway chief David Wilcox to take a look at this. So I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes in MTA headquarters.
Thank you. Our final speaker will be Murray Bowden.
I guess I make mistakes. This is another one. I thought I registered. This is a continuation of what started at safety when I started talking about the manual and uniform traffic control devices. This is about safety on buses and getting in accidents. You're all talking about this manual and uniform traffic control devices. This is the copy that was written in 1988, and you're using the same lines on the road today that you used then. You got computers that look, automobiles that drive by themselves, they need to know that the line on the left is yellow, the one on the right is white. You can't get that straight. I can't make them do it. I've been trying to do it for 20 years. They've stopped. They've taken the uniformity out of the manual. And when you've got cars and buses that are driving themselves, Jamie, Kathy taught me the value of consistency. I didn't make this up. When she was at the Thruway, she told me, you make everything the same and you reduce accidents. You got her right here on your staff. Ask her. You go to New York City and you make them make every road for every lane yellow on the left, white on the right. You increase bus speeds. You reduce accidents. This is all about bringing people back to using your buses. Well, do it that way. I'm going to leave right after this because I'm going to prepare for New Jersey Turnpike meeting tomorrow. They got the same problem. They refuse to make it yellow on the left, white on the right. They refuse to use a dotted line so people understand that this lane goes somewhere else. And until you solve that problem and make it consistency, you're not going to get faster bus speeds and you're not going to get safer bus speeds.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment session.
Thank you to all our speakers. I'd now like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 2022 meetings. Andrew, I'm sure you have a...
I have a couple.
Yes.
On page 13, the first sentence, it says remaining loose to when it should be close to.
Okay.
And then on page 28, it says, given that many of the significant crimes committed in the system are come from, it should instead of coming from. And finally, on page 43, on the top, President Davies' name is misspelled. It's missing the E.
Okay. All right. Do I entertain a motion to accept the meetings as amended? Randy? Do I have a second? Sharif, thank you. All those in favor? Against, abstentions, ayes have it. Okay. We're now, Rich, we're going to move to the work plan. Any changes to the work plan?
No changes to the work plan this month, but I'm sure as you've all noticed, and it was commented by a few folks, that we have a new board book, which I'll talk about in a moment, but no changes to the work plan.
Great. Okay, Rich, please start us off with the President's report, which I understand is going to cover updates for subways, buses, paratransit, and safety.
That's right. The committee will probably get sick of hearing my voice, but in the name of streamlining this report a bit, I'll give the report on behalf of Transit, but then, of course, want to engage in conversation, question, and dialogue. The Transit senior team is here to delve in deeper if there are questions. So over the last 2 months, the Transit leadership team has been, frankly, less focused on looking backwards and more focused on driving outcomes that will strengthen our relationship with our customers. The old performance metric playbook has been enhanced with customer satisfaction metrics with a focus on improving the customer experience and winning back our customers in the post-pandemic era. As a result, we want to report out and discuss with you the new committee book of key performance metrics each month going forward. I'll also, as I mentioned, present on behalf of the Transit team, but we welcome input, open dialogue with the entire team, of course, in this forum and throughout. The report is anchored on a monthly customer satisfaction pulse survey we have launched, the first of its kind at transit. At the same time, though, continuing with our deeper biannual customer survey where we have hundreds of thousands of folks respond. Working with MTA's market research team, they have tracked and reported the overall satisfaction for our customers across all modes every month. The combination of direct feedback and our operational performance data will allow for increased satisfaction in attracting more riders back to our service across all three modes. The monthly report that we will report on each month will include service reliability, wait time, station announcements, train and bus announcements, travel time, and MTA staff helpfulness. We will also report on the areas where customers tell us what would increase their satisfaction and what would encourage them to use our service more frequently. The new committee book is aligned on how we are managing and driving change for service delivery at MTA Transit. The performance metrics pinpoint specific areas where we can take action and allow us to measure these impacts in terms of improved service and rider experience. The historic metrics will continue to be made available for the public and for, of course, the committee and board. And I do want to thank both the transit team, but in particular, Juliet Michelson, Katie Swift, Monica Murray, Jackie Haldo, and Suri Gruskat, who really put a lot of work into making this report as you see it today. And of course, feedback is welcome from the committee where we can improve on the metrics and what we're doing to respond to those metrics going forward. So let me talk a little bit about what we found in June. In June, we found from our survey results, as already mentioned, that subways, that our customers are telling us that personal safety, homelessness, and people behaving erratically in our system are top of mind. On the other hand, our bus customers are reporting a greater need for improved wait times, crowding, travel times, and bus speeds. And on paratransit, we remain laser focused on pushing our vendors to increase the supply of drivers, as driver availability is the root cause for no-shows and performance where it is lacking. Now, let me highlight a few of the findings that we found. First, and really, I think, most gratifying, is that satisfaction with the helpfulness of our MTA employees is the highest in both subway and bus. Almost 80%, 79% to be exact, of our customers said they were satisfied or very satisfied with the helpfulness of our bus operators, and on subway it was over 62%. So not a surprise, but just another, I think, indication that the teams out there delivering that frontline service are doing great work. On subways, several initiatives are underway to address the safety and security raised by riders. You heard from Pat Warren earlier. You'll hear from the chief momentarily. But from piloting cameras on board trains, our end-of-line outreach efforts, and a continued partnership with NYPD to increase their presence along the system are critically important. When it comes to cameras, we have now fully deployed 200 cameras on 100 subway cars. We are going to be commencing, or have commenced, 60 days of testing with those deployable cameras, and then we'll determine next steps as to how to scale that across the system. What I might suggest is perhaps a closed-door briefing in the fall, Madam Chair, to get a little more detail into how that's working. But I would just tell you, at its base, so far, so good. Subway service was delivered at 92.2%. This is projected to improve as we continue to bring more operators, conductors, and train operators into our system. As mentioned, by at least one, perhaps two speakers, we continue to focus very much on hiring operators for both subway and bus, which I'll talk about in a moment. We're also looking at operational improvements and focusing the customer experience on the A, B, C, and D lines, where trains are losing time. We are strategically deploying staff and looking at our end-of-line operations to improve terminal operations. So we are leaving on time with appropriate crews. What we, of course, finding is if we're not leaving on time, it's impossible to catch up any time along the route. And so making sure that at the point of departure, we are leaving on time. That gives us a much better chance to be running the service and the headways that our customers expect. On buses, bus customers will enjoy faster journey times, as they've been asking, as we look at enhanced bus lanes, working with the city to roll out 150 bus lanes over the next now 3.5 years. Automated bus lane enforcement. We are continuing to add cameras onto our buses, 300 more this year for bus lane enforcement. And our network redesigns, which we heard some feedback from folks today. By and large, the Bronx Bus Redesign has gone extremely well. We've received great feedback from our customers, and I would say the data looks good. Jana will have more to say on that at the Wednesday board meeting. But I will say this, we continue to monitor the progress, and for the bus routes that were mentioned today, I saw Judy taking frivolous notes. We are going to look at, for both the Bronx and, of course, for Queens, which is still in design, opportunities to make improvements, which may include reinstalling bus stops or making further adjustments to service. But again, customer satisfaction is our North Star. Feedback is from our customers will inform that. On accessibility, accessibility in our subways remains a core focus, so all New Yorkers can take advantage of our system. We look forward over the coming years to be installing ramps or elevators and achieving at least 95% accessibility across our system. At the same time, today we watch our elevator availability closely, which was 96% in June. Not bad. We can do better, I believe, but making sure that accessibility where we have it today available is available for all. One other point I want to raise is weekend ridership and weekend service. Again, a note that was made earlier that we're seeing recreational ridership come back probably more quickly on nights and weekends than we are for weekday service. Historically, we've been performing lots of maintenance activities, right? This board has been taking lots of votes over the last few years for significant C&D work across our system. At the same time, we did, as an operating team, a review of our weekend service diversion operations and determined that we can step up our planning and execution. I think one issue that we noticed is there is a multitude of departments involved in the effort, but no one person with the authority, accountability, or ultimate ownership to own the entire customer experience in the weekend. So in the coming weeks, we will be appointing a weekend service czar to oversee the planning, coordination, and execution of our weekend service. More to come. The station environment is also a key contributor to how customers feel about our system. I briefed you last month about our station refresh program, which I am announcing we are branding Mop My Stop, with an exclamation point. Although it takes more, it's catchy, exactly. Although it takes more than just mopping the station. Demetrius Critchlow, who's Senior Vice President of Subways, and I on Saturday had the opportunity to visit on the concourse line at Nord and 205th Street, the work that's happening there. Power washing, concrete floor repairs, tile replacement, light replacement, repainting the ceilings and columns, fixing platforms, adding tactile strips, and water intrusion. Show and tell time. This is not a psychedelic mushroom or a corn muffin. What this is water intrusion mitigation. What we saw is these pins literally being shot up into the ceiling, and this grout, I guess, Demetrius, what would you call it? Sure, grout, all right. Being placed into the cavities that are created as a result of water intrusion over the years, which is probably the biggest issue at this station and a huge issue at a number of our stations across the system. So this is not just mopping my stop, it is a full-on effort to mitigate some of the challenges that we have in our stations. But I'm excited about this program. There'll be more to come about the stations we will tackle here in 2022 and beyond. The other things I want to highlight quickly, as I mentioned, is hiring. There was a question from someone in one of our customers earlier in the comment period about bus and subway operator and conductor hiring. I can tell you that New York City Transit Bus, in fact, has hired over 1,300 bus operators this year, and our operator availability is quite now good. In some of the boroughs, up to 99%, and so we are feeling good about the opportunity or the ability to deliver the service that we're advertising for our bus customers. The target for subway remains a bit elusive. We are still on target for the first quarter of next year for both conductors and train operators. We did graduate 48 new train operators in June, and then just began our largest class of train operators as well. As you know, that training is more lengthy for a bunch of different reasons, and so we will continue at it. But the lack of available crews on subway continues to be the number one reason for us to not deliver service. So attacking that and getting qualified folks back into our system, as well as improving our availability, is a key focus for Demetrius, Craig, and myself. We've also heard about employee assaults. One is too many. We have way too many, I can tell you. So to that end, we are establishing, or recently established, joint management and labor task force in both subways and bus to really look granularly and deeply at the things that we can be doing here at Transit to make sure our people are safe and taken care of. And so whether that's looking at continued ways to improve the operator environment in our buses. For example, we have seen an uptick in assaults through the window because operators, now that it's warm, have the window open. Are there redesigns or engineering improvements we can make? We are working very closely with labor to come up with very tactical and specific solutions. You know, ideas like cockpits and others might be good, but those would be years away from a bus procurement. What can we do now? We've challenged our teams, and we're looking at opportunities and ways to improve our employees' safety. Lastly, just in terms of the follow-up is our transit talk. And so we've had an opportunity to get out in the system. We're in June at 3rd Ave and 138th Street on the 6th. A couple weeks ago, we're at Queensboro Plaza to talk to our customers, to see what's happening. We are choosing, by the way, the stations that are performing worst on our customer satisfaction survey, not the best. We want to see what's happening out in some of these stations. And so thanks to Chris and the customer service team, they have had, and we are not, by the way, spiffing these stations up prior to arrival. We have told folks that we want to see the operating environment and make sure that we're experiencing what our customers are seeing as well. Fare evasion, reducing homelessness, individuals behaving erratically. Again, from the feedback we've heard from our customers in person, again, Chief Wilcox will shortly provide some information on the efforts and partnerships that we've had together to address these issues, and appreciate his continued partnership and leadership there. And then lastly, I want to just echo, you're going to be taking an action, or being asked to take an action later today on the purchase of 5 all-electric buses to advance our commitment to sustainability and advance our responsibility to our environment. We are going to be also sharing with you, I think, Sunil, we have those? Perfect. We'll pass those out as we go to potentially questions. But our transition plan to zero emission bus, right? So this is not just about purchasing buses. It is about improving our infrastructure to make sure we have not only the powering infrastructure in place, but also trained, employees. And there is a lot of work to be done to get us to zero fleet emission. Sunil and team have put together a really impressive, I think, transition plan, which we wanted to share with the committee. I think it's leading the country, by the way, in what we're doing. So wanted to just share that with you. And lastly, while Frank Anacarno is not here, Safira, of course, is ably sitting in for him. I was pleased to appoint him the permanent senior vice president for all of buses at the beginning of July. He has really pulled together a strong team and are looking at not only the service, improvements that I mentioned, but also things like predictive bus maintenance, which we will talk about at a future committee meeting. But just excited for his leadership and excited for the team that we're pulling together. So, Madam Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Rich. Any questions for Rich? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to Q. Q, you want to update us on accessibility, please?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. July is Disability Pride Month, and tomorrow we celebrate the 32nd anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Earlier this month, MTA Accessibility partnered with the Transit Museum for a panel highlighting a range of projects that enhance accessibility throughout our system, from wayfinding apps for blind or low vision customers to digital screens enhancements. The program included Senior Accessibility Outreach Coordinator Sarah Barry and the Director of Products, Josh Gee. Rider Products, Josh Gee. We also participated in Disability Unite Festival in Central Park to celebrate with the public and our riders, alongside a dozen other city agencies who, for the first time in 3 years, have come together to celebrate Disability Pride Month. In addition to these public events, we are highlighting colleagues across the MTA who do exceptional work to advance accessibility here. We launched a series featuring members of various departments on MTA's internal TV networks and throughout our employees' newsletters. And we encourage all our employees and those passing through our offices to check out these images and articles to learn about how departments across the MTA are contributing to system-wide accessibility goals. You've heard me say it before, but I am just the facilitator of this here at the MTA. It takes a village, and I'm happy to have so many folks around the agency on board to enhance accessibility. We're very happy to share that we are launching an updated mandated ADA training for all employees from across the agencies here as part of our 2022 annual employee training cycle. This new interactive online training module will cover topics such as language and etiquette, customer service and sensitivities, and key accessibility features on all operating systems. The training will ensure all MTA employees, whether frontline or office-based workers, know the basics and are ready to help make our system and work environment feel safe and welcoming for all customers and our colleagues. Lastly, work continues on subway elevator replacement projects and tactile edge installations. Tactile edges were installed at Grand Avenue Newton MR stations in Queens and at the downtown tracks of the Liberty Avenue AC station in Brooklyn. The new Manhattan-bound elevators at Roosevelt Island F station was recently placed back in service, with work beginning to replace the Queens-bound elevators later on this month. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Q. Any questions for Q? Okay, if not, we're going to turn it over to Chris Papandreou. He can update us on our new monthly customer service survey.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. We know the customer experience is the driver of satisfaction, and the customer department is working lockstep with our partners in subways and buses to help deliver improved performance results, beginning first with capturing and analyzing perceptions that are specific to our customers' travel experience in a more nimble way. In May, we began using flash surveys. This lets customers give us feedback a lot faster about the issues that are most pressing during their journey. Here's what we learned from our customers in June. The percentage of satisfied and dissatisfied customers were about the same for subways, buses, and paratransit. Waiting time and service reliability remain stable for both subways and buses, and we are keeping a keen eye on those indicators. Top of mind for subway customers under needs improvement are environmental surroundings, personal safety, security, reducing homelessness, people behaving erratically. For bus customers, wait times, crowding, and travel times were cited as needing improving. Most notable are the high ratings about our frontline staff. Customers rated MTA staff helplessness, that is, our bus drivers, subway, train, and station teams, are among the highest across all the categories scored. We also saw improvements in better announcements on both subways and buses during service disruptions. These are gains. We should continue to build on that. A little shout out to our friends in market research, Janice Pepper and James Rubin, for leading these efforts. Okay, we recently hosted our first Customer Appreciation Luncheon. 20 customers were randomly selected from the pool of survey respondents. They came to 2 Broadway and had lunch with President Davey and some members of leadership team to talk about various topics specific to their travel and concerns. Our customer teams were out in full force meeting with customers at Atlantic Avenue's Barclays Center, one of our business transit hubs, to promote Omni and ways to save using fare capping. Using our help desk, we engage with customers as they walk through stations to bring awareness about ways to pay the fare, including, New York City's Fair Fares program. We want customers to use their eligible opportunities to save money, to take the subway and bus. Outreach teams also emphasize the impact that fares have on providing sustainable subway and bus service throughout the system. We will plan more of these, especially before school returns to full sessions. President Davies spoke earlier about our recent Transit Talk event at Queensboro Plaza. I wanted to let everyone know that our next Transit Talk is being scheduled for mid-August. And we'll be sure to let everyone know the details on that. And Brooklyn, here we come. Thank you.
He's saying sorry because I like to have them more frequently than once a month. Not that I don't like to have them.
Yeah, we're going to definitely return to a lot more frequently come the fall.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to Chief Wilcox. Chief, you want to update us?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. It's been a busy month. So one thing that I like to provide a context with, transit crime accounts for about 1.9% of the total New York City crime picture right now. But we are experiencing total increases in our major crime categories of over 55% when you compare us to the crime numbers from last year at this time. In the larger view, when you go back to pre-COVID crime levels and you compare our overall crime numbers now to 3 years ago, to 5 years ago, you will see actual decreases in our overall crime figures. We have been able to hold to a daily crime number of around 6 crimes a day. Prior to those COVID years, you would have to go back to around 2014 to see similar daily figures. It has been a challenging year, but again, we are working very hard in a very determined fashion to keep crime down. It's all about safety, President Davey. We acknowledge that. Our focus on fighting crime and restoring a sense of order in our subways has not wavered. Through the middle of July, total arrests in transit are up over 65%. Felony arrests are up 44%. Misdemeanor arrests are up 69%. Gun arrests are up 36%. And arrests for cutting weapons are up over 105%. A critical commitment that we have stayed focused on since the beginning of this year is to expand our uniform presence on the trains and within the stations. This too has not wavered. Combined efforts by both our transit officers, precinct officers, and housing patrol officers performing vertical patrols and station inspections at subway stops and hubs throughout the system have yielded nearly 550,000 such patrols this year. That's about 2,700 a day. Transit officers from every district and unit have proactively done over 200,000 uniform train patrols this year. Since the middle of May, our train patrol force, our TPF, has done 2,500 multi-borough, multi-district train patrols during those critical overnight hours. This TPF team and this TPF concept will be expanding in the near future. In addition, our Transit Anti-Terrorism Unit, our ATU, which operates 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, are actively working throughout the entire system to keep the subways safe. They have performed thousands of train patrols and done thousands of team-led train sweeps, also known as TOMS, this year, and they have done hundreds of tunnel and emergency exit inspections. The Transit ATU plays such a critical role in our efforts and strategies to deter terrorism. Touching on something that we talked about last month, I want to commend our Transit Citywide Vandal Squad for a recent but timely arrest from last week. A vigorous investigation and review of posted social media videos led them to identifying and arresting a 15-year-old male from the Bronx that was actively involved in both subway surfing incidents as well as going into train tunnels and tagging graffiti onto train cars that were being laid up overnight. Many of us responded on a recent Saturday afternoon on July 9th to West 137th Street and Broadway train station in Upper Manhattan, where a 14-year-old male youth had been seriously stabbed. A dispute that started on the street but then quickly came down into the station, culminating in a violent altercation on the platform. That 14-year-old would soon succumb to his injuries at an area hospital. This is so terrible when you consider that neither the victim or the suspect in the stabbing had even reached their 16th birthday. Within a very short time, within an hour really, we were able to obtain excellent MTA video footage from that station. These images of the suspect were immediately provided to investigators and to responding officers. This proved to be of critical importance that helped lead to a swift identification and apprehension of that suspect in this violent crime. And just last week, on July 19th, we saw another dispute between 3 males turn quickly violent at the Rockaway Boulevard train station on the A line. In this incident, 2 adult males received stabbing and slashing wounds from the 3rd male, who was armed with a cutting instrument. Once again, MTA video was quickly obtained and images of the suspect distributed by our detectives to patrol. Transit District 23 officers on train patrol the next day observed the male from the wanted flyer and stopped him. This led to a 29-year-old male being arrested and charged with both of the above stabbing and assaults. These 2 incidents bring me to the overall issue of assaults in transit system this year. We have seen an increase in the area of 18% in felony assaults and 41% in misdemeanor assaults. Felony assault accounts for a quarter of our total major crime statistics, and stabbing/slashing incidents account for 32% of our total felony assault incidents. So many of these incidents have started as a verbal dispute that then quickly escalated. We have also seen increases on assaults on MTA employees and assaults on police officers. We have seen over a 55% increase in assaults on police officers this year. The majority of these assaults on police officers began as the officers were engaging persons who had committed fare evasion and/or other quality of life violations on the trains and stations. We are very focused on this type of crime when it does occur. A robust patrol and investigative response occurs for every such incident. 64% of our felony assaults this year have arrests attached to them. Our overall felony assault arrests are up 15%, and our misdemeanor assaults arrests are up 23%. Just recently, starting on July 5th, our city saw a 40-year-old male armed with a serrated edged knife go on a very terrible and violent stabbing spree that targeted the homeless as they slept on the streets, leaving one dead and others seriously injured. This highlights how vulnerable the homeless can be, and it also highlights, to me, the vital nature of our combined efforts in transit to help the homeless. As part of the mayor's subway safety plan, we continue to work vigorously every day, every night, in a collaborative partnership to address the complex issue of homelessness in the subways with the goal of connecting them to service and connecting them to shelter, to get them into a place of safety. This is very important work and very much a team effort with the Department of Social Services, the MTA, and our other partners, from the officers on the platforms when those trains come in, to the immediate in-station contact from our partners at DHS, BRC, and the nurses and clinicians providing homeless services, all the way to the contracted vendors providing the critical service of swift vehicle transportation of those homeless accepting shelter. Everyone involved plays an integral role in the success of this effort. Between our efforts with the joint response teams on the trains, the many end-of-line initiatives, and the dedicated nightly work of our Subway Safety Task Force, we have made nearly 33,000 homeless contacts, done over 21,000 train inspections, made over 3,000 train runs, and most importantly, made over 5,000 shelter placements or referrals for the homeless in the subway system. I wish to close on some important and recent personnel and personal issues affecting us. Our NYPD transit team is currently dealing with a shocking and tragic loss. Inspector Zahir Aziz passed away suddenly last Thursday evening from a medical episode while at his residence. He had 20 years of dedicated service to our city with the NYPD, where he's been an executive since 2008. He has been in leadership roles in the Transit Bureau since 2015. He was the commanding officer of Transit District 11 in the Bronx for 4 years, and most recently, since 2019 until the present, Inspector Aziz was the commanding officer of Transit Borough Brooklyn, overseeing the 4 transit districts and officers patrolling the subways in Brooklyn. His importance to the Transit Bureau cannot be overstated. His patient and steady hand helped Brooklyn Transit get through the many tribulations of recent years, including COVID. He also responded to the terror attack on the N train at the 36th Street station on the morning of April 12th and played a key role in helping us maintain that scene and immediately working to establish focus and safety in the days that followed. His leadership and his presence will be greatly missed, and we join together in praying for and providing support to his family. On a different note, but a far better note, 2 of our district commanding officers have now moved on to new challenging leadership assignments in the NYPD. Deputy Inspector Ken Gorman has now moved from Transit District 1 to become the commanding officer of the 114th Precinct in Queens, and Captain Edison Gutierrez has moved from Transit District 23 in the Rockaways to become the new commanding officer of Housing Police Service Area 8 in the Bronx. We thank them for their great work they have done in transit and wish them continued success in their new roles. We also welcome newly promoted captains Lauren Foster, Senta Caleb, and Alexander Mesa to our Transit Bureau team. Coming from rich prior experiences on patrol, in transit, and investigative backgrounds, they will make excellent additions to our team. One more good note for the month of July to report. On July 1st, the NYPD held a Police Academy graduation ceremony at Madison Square Garden. I'm happy to report that we received 57 new police officers out of that graduating class. They are now members of our Subway Training Unit, or STU. Overlapping with the prior class that graduated in April, our Subway Training Unit now has in the area of 120 young officers out patrolling the trains and stations during the PM rush and evening hours. We are very, very glad to have them. Finally, I was fortunate recently to sit down with the new MTA Police Department Chief, John Mueller. When I was in Bronx Detectives, we had a very strong and very positive working relationship with the Yonkers Police Department, from where Chief Mueller is coming from. I look forward to working closely with him as we partner together to face the many challenges ahead. Thanks again for your continued support, and I'll take any questions.
All right. David, just let me ask a question. Chief, how many, you don't have to give me the specific number, but how many police officers do we have a day patrolling our subway system?
So, within the Transit Bureau, we have over 2,000 police officers, over 2,500 uniformed members. But what's critical and has been very beneficial to our strategy is getting the extra support from patrol, from housing, coming in and doing vertical patrols into the station. We've done hundreds of thousands this year, such vertical patrols. So we're looking at in a ballpark figure, well over 1,000 different officers coming into the system to supplement our normal post coverage on a daily basis. So very, very important to our strategy, very important to our success. So, that's basically what we're doing.
All right. No, I asked that because, as Chris reported earlier, the number one issue that people feel is the lack, I don't want to say the lack of safety, but safety. So I'm saying if they don't see the police officers, they have that sense of not being safe.
Right. So, just go back to when I first got here in January, and I've said it at this meeting, and it's been sort of my mantra, uniform train patrol. That's what we're constantly trying to push forward and make better and be more visible. We know our mere presence in uniform on a train or in a station or in a mezzanine makes people feel safer, and that's what we're trying to push forward.
Okay. No, I appreciate the fact that you touched on that. David?
Yes, Chief, I guess I'm going to go back to an old issue. I looked on the issues of tab summonses and arrests. Basically for fare evasion. It's in our booklet.
Yep.
It seems like there's been a dramatic increase on all those levels. And I'd like to know why the dramatic increase, and also my recurring interest in the demographics of who's being stopped and who's being arrested, since at least in our understanding that fare evasion seems to be system-wide. But the question is it being concentrated in certain stations? That's A. And B being the question of the demographics of who's being stopped and arrested. This has been a recurrent theme of mine and concern of mine. I certainly want enforcement of fare evasion, but I want to see it equitably distributed.
And so do we. Fare evasion is a priority for us. We're trying to, sort of bend the curve back. We think we might have lost some ground on this in the last few years. It accounts for about 3/4 of our total tab picture, which may have been more in prior years, because one of the things we're definitely trying to focus on is quality of life violations on the trains. And we're definitely doing that. Our tab summonses for quality of life are up well over 130%. So we're focusing a lot more on that. We're giving greater attention to quality of life. But you're right, fare evasion summonses are up 24%. Some of those fare evasion summonses lead to arrests for various reasons. They have warrants, they're transit offenders, etc. Those are also up. We're giving greater attention to all offenses occurring in the system. We're trying to restore order. We're trying to restore a sense of calm to the system. But to your point about targeting one community or one neighborhood, absolutely not. In fact, when you look at one of the most, with fare evasion, one of the most diverse transit districts is District 4, and that they lead the city in fare evasion summonses. And that goes from Chinatown to the wealthiest neighborhoods in New York City all the way up to 125th Street. So, you know.
And the issue of what the demographics of the arrests and stops? Who's being arrested and stopped? That's what I want to know. I say this goes well before your time, sir.
No, I understand that.
But when I was first told about this 6 years ago, it was 95% Black and Latino. And yet, I think everyone who rides the system knows the question of fare evasion virtually stretches through almost every community. And yet, it seems that the targeted groups always seem to be the poorest and people of color. So I raise that not to criticize you and what you're trying to do, but my ongoing concern of the issues of equity that we have in the city of New York.
I share your concern, and when we deal with fare evasion, we try to be fair. We are committed to fairness. We are committed to not targeting any group, absolutely not. And we address the condition throughout the system, throughout all the communities, you know, wherever we come across it. We're definitely putting a harder look at it, but we're applying it, I feel, with a strong level of fairness.
Okay.
Andrew and then Lisa.
I would just add, Chief, I hope you are targeting one group, those that are avoiding paying the fare.
That we are doing.
Lisa.
Thank you, Chief. Excuse me, losing my voice. 3 questions. Are there any specific stations that are of more concern than others? The arrests are going up, but does that mean anything if they're not keeping them in jail? Or is there any follow-up to know once these arrests are made, are these individuals coming right back into the system and recommitting the same crimes? And I think my biggest one is with the homeless population. Are they being removed, or are these just conversations? And I'll tell you my opinion so that it's clear, and it may not be a uniformed opinion, but my personal one is if they're homeless and mentally ill, they should be removed and provided with services. There was a big challenge about offering them services, which is respectful of who they are, but does not help if they're not getting the services that they need. So, thank you.
So I'll start with that one, with the homeless. Obviously, a very long-standing and complex issue that affects the transit system. I dealt with it when I was here a decade ago, and others dealt with it decades before me. So but what's happening this year, which I think is critically important and to remember is, and I mentioned it, is this collaborative effort. It used to be done maybe ad hoc or at certain operations, but the consistent daily, nightly effort that's being put forth by the NYPD, by the MTA police officers, working hand in hand with DHS, Health and Mental Hygiene, Department of Hospitals. This is new. This is important. It's born out of the mayor's subway safety plan. We are committed to it, and I think it is significant when we look at over 5,000 homeless that have been referred or placed in shelter. That's very important, and we can't, you know, I don't want to negate the importance of that. Are there still homeless in the subways? Yes. We've also, on top of the homeless initiatives, we've taken maybe 2,000 homeless to hospital for medical care, or that are suffering from critical mental crisis. Do they get back out of the hospital? Yes, the majority of them do, and then we deal with them again. But we will keep dealing with them. The goal of the plan, and that I'm committed to, is to getting these people service and shelter, long term. So it's not something, we've been at this since January, really February, and there's a long way to go, and we're not going to waver on that. It's important. It really is important, and I think what we saw this month with the person that was murdering and stabbing homeless that were sleeping in parks and benches highlights how important this is. We take it very seriously, but we take the aspect of dealing with the homeless with care and compassion equally seriously. I know I do. So I want to just go back to the other point about certain stations. The stations that often that have the most crime, you wouldn't be surprised. They're the busiest stations. They're the critical hubs. There's so many more people there, they tend to, have more crime incidents. Doesn't mean that they're unsafe, but that's just, the way it happens. We're fighting every district. We have 12 transit districts, and we're fighting this every day, trying to make every station safe. The level of attention that's given to any major crime in transit is tremendous, Our commanding officers give great focus to whether it's an assault, if it's a robbery, a pickpocket, or somebody's bag was stolen when they fell asleep on the N train. Whatever it is, we give a tremendous amount of attention. And I also want to give kudos to the detectives that work hand in hand with us. I know them all because they worked for me last year. We are so fortunate to have such a great detective, investigative cadre of people that work hand in hand with us, whether it's arson explosion with fires or just the transit squad working a normal case. They are excellent, and we are fortunate to have them, and I'm very blessed to have a strong network bond with them. Recidivism, I think you mentioned recidivism in terms of, obviously, we make arrests, we bring them to the district attorney's office, and there are, certain obvious, well-documented, well-spoken of situations that we have to deal with. Certain things are non-bail. They're going to get out. We've had people that, and I've talked to Mr. Pat Warren about this, people that have done track intrusions again and again and again, and we've arrested them again and again, and they get back out. So, this is an issue that we deal with every day. But, we have to and we will continue to work closely with our borough district attorney's offices. It's on an important case, we demand or direct our commanding officers to do an executive conferral, so that if somebody needs to stay in jail or needs a high bail, we make sure that our voice is heard.
First of all, I want to thank
Yes.
you. There isn't enough money to be paid for the work that you all do, so I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
And as it relates to the homeless, it wasn't a non-compassionate question. It was really because I see the mentally ill and the homeless, and I wish we could pick them up and provide them the service. So the fact that you put this plan and the mayor supporting it is amazing.
It's a team plan, and it's
Right.
everybody in this room. It's the MTA police behind me. We have weekly conversations with DHS, Commissioner Jenkins from DSS. We are committed to this.
Thank you so much for all your service. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief? All right, if not, thank you, Chief. We'll move on. Lou, I think we got some procurements.
Yes, thank
Three?
you. Good morning. The New York City Transit procurement package includes 3 actions in the amount of $238.2 million. The first item, as Mr. Davy mentioned earlier, is the procurement of 5 low-floor, 40-foot all-electric buses from a New York State-based bus manufacturer, Nova Bus, in the total estimated amount of $8.2 million. This procurement emphasizes New York City Transit's commitment to transition to a zero-emission bus fleet by 2040. These buses will continue to provide additional operational experience to expand on planned deployments of electric buses as part of the capital plan. The price per bus is $1.43 million, and the contract includes diagnostic equipment for testing, spare parts, and special tools. The first bus will begin in-service evaluation in October 2023, with delivery of all 5 buses by April 2024. The next action is a request to extend New York City Transit's contract with WSP USA for inspection and testing services for 2 years in the estimated amount of $20 million. WSP, under our program, provides a rigorous, highly successful worldwide program for the inspection and testing of products and materials to ensure strict specification compliance for New York City Transit and for C&D. In order to expand best practices and leverage economies of scale, it was determined that the renewal RFP for this program will be expanded to include the requirements of Long Island Railroad and Metro North. Additional time, therefore, is needed to ensure uninterrupted service while the expanded RFP is developed, solicited, and awarded. The final action is a request to extend the New York City Transit and MTA bus contracts with Sprag Operating Resources for the continued provision of fuel for 1 year for the fleet of approximately 5,000 buses in the combined estimated total of $209.9 million, based on projected fuel usage and costs. Multiple proposals are currently under evaluation in response to a consolidated RFP that for the first time includes revenue bus fuel alongside the previously consolidated all agency spend to leverage MTA's massive fuel requirements and maximize pricing efficiencies in the marketplace using a category management approach. Additional time is required to continue the evaluation, conduct negotiations, and make recommendations for award. This extension is needed to ensure that Sprag will continue to provide this critical commodity without interruption. I submit these procurements for board approval.
Lou, I have a question. In the second procurement, you say that you're going to include Long Island Railroad and Metro North. Who did it before for LIRR and Metro North?
They've done it on their own,
Okay.
independent. Now that we're looking at everything from a category management standpoint, we think it makes most sense to include this as part of the larger picture for the
Got
rest
it.
of the MTA.
Okay. It does make sense.
There should
Thank
be
you.
benefits.
Okay. Any questions for Lou on the procurements? Okay. If not, do I hear a motion to accept the procurements? Randy? So moved. Second? Second, Lisa. All those in favor? Okay. Against? Abstentions? We move on. Okay. I'm now going to hand it over to Judy to give us some information about service changes that are coming in the winter. We're planning ahead, Judy.
Good afternoon. We've been looking at how ridership has changed in our post-COVID world, how it's changed by time of day and day of the week. We have begun working to revise our schedules to better align service to our current ridership travel patterns. As a start, we're proposing to shift some number 4 and number 7 line trips earlier in the AM and PM peak periods. For each of these lines, we are shifting 2 trips in the morning from the late morning, the 9 to 10 a.m. period, to the early morning from 5 to 7 a.m. That's when we're seeing relatively higher demand. In the evening, we are shifting 1 to 2 trips on both the 4 and the 7 lines from the 5 to 8 p.m. period to the 3 to 5 period. The details of these changes are in a staff summary that has been provided to you. These schedule changes will be implemented in December 2022 and will save approximately $300,000 due to changes in pay hours. The overall net number of trips will not change on both of those lines.
Great. Thank you, Judy. Any questions for Judy? Okay. If not, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion, okay. Second? Okay, those in favor? Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.